Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Welcome back to F1 News. With Red Bull and Ferrari certainly being the two best cars at the present time, can Mercedes actually get back in time to compete for championships by the end of the year? Red Bull are still concerned that Mercedes will come back in business, upgrades supposedly expected as soon as Australia, but will it be enough to get Hamilton back challenging for titles by the end of the season? Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always. Firstly, this from F1, so of course we expect the Las Vegas Grand Prix to be announced very soon, not coming in this year, but I believe coming in next year. Concerns it's going to be another boring street circuit type race. This is what they come up with, a bit of a teaser. People, of course, turn up the contrast and find out that when you kind of zoom in and change the contrast, it looks like this, which looks like Las Vegas 2023 or something along those lines. So that seems to be what they're going for. This makes sense at this point, but just another example of a kind of controversial couple of weeks in the Formula One world in terms of the decisions they make and where the money comes from. Like, here we are again, to be perfectly honest, but who's surprised? Speaking of the US Grand Prix in Miami, which is coming up soon, so we've got Australia in a couple of weekends' time, then I think it's Imola right after that, and then after that it goes to Miami. So, well, during this, instead of just a driver's parade, they're also doing a team principals parade, I imagine for the first time ever, which is quite something really. It's kind of like a Drive to Survive special in a way, that these guys, like the team principals never used to be particularly public-facing figures that people really cared about, right? It was just the drivers, but nowadays, kind of like the whole banter and the beef between these guys, especially because of Drive to Survive to a degree, and especially in the US, has actually become a big thing. So they're going to do a principals parade for, I guess, the first time ever. It's interesting. It's revolutionary, I suppose. But I hope we get to see Wolf versus Horner, like some fisticuffs over there. That would be entertaining stuff. But doubt it's quite going to go down like that. That's as your WTF1 say, the Drive to Survive effect. So something like this is actually going to be happening. But I guess it's going to be entertaining. But it's going to be something new for Formula One most certainly. Let's talk about the way the championship is faring out at the present time. So of course, Ferrari are in the lead. Charles Leclerc, he's taken one race, come second in the most recent one in Saudi Arabia. I would say right now the Ferrari probably looks like the better car. Yes, I think Red Bull had a better setup for Saudi Arabia, but especially for most of the races where there's going to be a lot of slower corners, the Ferrari seems super good. Like the acceleration out of the corners for the Ferrari is spectacular. So I think on most circuits, the car currently favours them, and the championship already favours them, right? Quite significant leads for Charles Leclerc in the championship over Max Verstappen. As the season progresses, there's 23 races, 21 more to go. It's a long season, but already there's something of an advantage there, right? That's a more significant advantage than Lewis Hamilton ever had over Max Verstappen last year, right? And I'm pretty sure actually after the first race in Bahrain, Hamilton had a bigger advantage over Verstappen than he had at any point last season. That's certainly not the case anymore though, with Verstappen of course winning in Saudi Arabia. But Mattia Binotto reckons, Leclerc right now is demonstrating he's capable of fighting for the championship. Most people expect right now a Leclerc, Max Verstappen fight this season. But as I say, it's a long time. There's a lot of races. There's a lot of chance to come back, and Mercedes are obviously hoping to do that sooner rather than later. The current standings look as follows. Hamilton here on only 16 points after 2 races, picked up one of course in Saudi Arabia, but Leclerc, Sainz, Verstappen on 25 after the engine failures that both Red Bulls suffered in Bahrain. But this is how it looks right now. Of course, Russell actually ahead of Hamilton, right? That is another question. Will Hamilton, if Mercedes do create a competitive package, is Hamilton going to be the driver from them that's going to be the one competing for the title, or is George Russell going to be there? Because he performed very well in Saudi Arabia with the car that he had. Of course, Hamilton's setup was similarly slightly different and worse, but subtly so. I think Russell honestly drove a great race in Saudi Arabia. So, that is another question, right? Who actually, if Mercedes are going to compete, I don't really think they've we know who the number one driver is, but I don't think they've said, I'm pretty sure they've said that we're treating both drivers equally, which isn't necessarily always the case, but it's kind of how Ocon and Alonso in a way, they were look, battle it out on track for a bit, and then if you're ahead after a few laps, then we're going to say hold position. Maybe that happens here, right? If Russell seems to be the one challenging, who knows what that means internally, the politics inside Mercedes might get quite interesting at a time like that. But of course, Red Bull are looking at the Ferraris, right, and saying, okay, hang on a second, they're looking pretty good, and obviously concerned to some degree that Mercedes, after their poor start, are probably the team that you would imagine is most likely to turn things around very quickly. Whether they will do that, whether they will just become a Ferrari of the last few years, that's another question. But Helmut Marko certainly reckons that Mercedes are going to come back for sure. And Verstappen, of course, doesn't have that much of an advantage over Lewis. If Ferrari just stagnate, right, and don't develop that quickly, and Red Bull and Mercedes both overtake them, then of course the difference between these two drivers that were battling it out last season is still not all that great, right? The difference only 9 points or so. This is what Helmut Marko has to say, right? A chief advisor to Red Bull, says a few things about Ferrari and the passion, emotion, sportsmanship, and respect that you get from Ferrari that you don't necessarily get for their battles with Mercedes last year. I thought it was quite interesting. But he also says, look, Hamilton only 9 points behind Verstappen. They are not writing off the World Championship at all. Obviously Mercedes are never going to do that unless they're mathematically impossible to be able to win it, they will come back for sure. It will probably end in a three-way fight. So Marco reckons, over at Red Bull, probably going to be a three-way fight at the end of the year. Whether Mercedes can actually get competitive quickly enough, right? Because there's things they need to, there's so many issues they need to sort out, right? The porpoising, of course, being the main one. George Russell said if they fix that, 99% of their issues go away. Is the engine lacking power? Like, what about the rear wing? Are they having way too much drag? All these problems that they're kind of suffering with that, of course, are giving the other teams a big head start, right? But I'm sure they're working around the clock to try and figure something out very quickly indeed. And seemingly, they're trying to bring some upgrades to Australia. So really between Bahrain and Jeddah, nothing too much could change. I think Hamilton was generally, and the team was quite happy about some of the tweaks they had made, but generally a track that doesn't really suit this car particularly well right now. Like, the car is just awful in the fast corners compared to the Red Bull and the Ferrari, and obviously Jeddah is full of fast corners, and their straight line speed isn't good, and it's a very straight line speed dependent track. So they were pretty much losing a second a lap during race pace, which, is, I guess, expected for a circuit like this with the car they currently have, but of course that's not going to cut it for the rest of the season, right, if they want one of their drivers to be lifting the World Championship trophy at the end of the season. So anyway, this is what they say. There are a few articles that came out about this, the fact that they're looking for some sort of additional impact really to maybe their flooring or to the rear wing, most certainly, when we go to Australia in a couple of weeks' time. So the main upgrade package, the complete package, is meant to be ready for Imola, or more reasonably for Barcelona, a few weeks after that. But they're certainly trying to do something right here, either with the flooring or the rear wing, because it seems like the key issues they're discussing right now are the amount of drag they're getting on the car with these front and rear wings. So they're kind of saying, look, it's a gap that needs to be bridged. They're doing experiments to figure out, why is it porpoising? And supposedly a rear wing change might be what they're going to try and bring to Australia. Maybe some sort of flooring changes, who knows? I think there's some sort of rear wing addition in the works right now before they kind of bring it, as we could describe, the full package upgrade in for the Imola Grand Prix in a few weekends' time at this point. But again, as you can see right here, the Russell's delta to Verstappen over the 30 laps after the safety car period was 32.7 seconds, over a second per lap that was being lost 0.9 right in practice, and a similar margin, to be honest. I think it was maybe 0.8, 0.9 in qualifying as well. So not ideal by any means. Now, this I thought was actually pretty interesting what the guys from Mercedes had to say about this. The fact that given this car, right, with small rear wing, and obviously the kind of no pods, side pods design, or whatever you guys want to call it, that it should in theory reduce the drag right on the vehicle to as low as, theoretically as possible. But of course that's not the case right now, because an engineer clarifies from Mercedes, don't look at the surface of the car and the rear wing flap. This is misleading. Drag is mainly generated by the skin of the rear wing and the lower wing in the rear, and we're way up there at this point, so actually way up on drag compared to the other teams. They will already react in Melbourne. A new rear wing is in the production loop. Until the Australian GP, the engineers will sift through all the data. Every week you go in circles with the problem, the rest of the development stops, says Toto. You can't catch up on the gap that we have by the next race. We'll have to work forward and protect backwards. Must not fall into the trap of making prediction today about where we will be in the summer. So he doesn't want to say much more than this, but still, who knows how much time they already have. They didn't do the best job, Toto Wolff says. Like, it's difficult to estimate how far behind we would have been if we had to drive our car lower, because effectively due to the porpoising they have to run at a higher ride height, which reduces their downforce significantly in the corners, which is far from ideal. And actually I thought this is quite interesting. They reckon that the actual engines aren't all that dissimilar. He reckons maybe like 1 or 2 tenths of lap time on the engine difference. It's mainly to do with the air resistance that the Mercedes has right now. So if they're confident they can figure that out, and whatever new aerodynamics package they want to bring to the car, but cost cap is also this season a consideration. So interesting stuff. Red Bull reckon Mercedes will be competitive. Toto Wolff and the Mercedes guys don't really want to say, but they're confident it's not really the engine that's holding them back. It's just kind of the design of the aero, and if they get that right with the rear wing and the flooring, then they should be in a good spot. But still, that's no guarantees they're going to do that in time, to be honest. This I thought was pretty interesting. The Aramco kind of power rankings from the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. Interesting to me that Leclerc gets a 9.0, Verstappen gets an 8.8, because of course Verstappen won the race. I guess whoever was making these thought, okay, Verstappen probably had a car that was better suited to the race, which I think you could agree in terms of the straight line speed towards the end, not really all that much Leclerc could probably have done. Both of them drove a great race. Rosales gets credit in third place. I feel like Perez is somewhat, I don't know, kind of got unlucky in a way. Like he did so well up until the first safety car was pulling a pretty significant advantage on the rest of the field. And once he found himself in fourth position, couldn't do all that much towards the end. Norris here, Carlos Sainz, and then finishing out with a Kevin Magnussen in ninth place. Just love to see it. Hamilton nowhere to be found. I'm pretty sure they only do the top 10 on this one. And just penalty points as well after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. So these run out quite quickly for some drivers. Tsunoda up here at 8, and the top 3 all kind of, sponsored by Red Bull powertrains. But Verstappen and Perez both on 7 here. Verstappen's one I did mention a few videos ago is a bit of a question mark, just because he, I think it's going to be many races until about Monza where some of these start to get written off. So he does have to be careful, which maybe is why he's being a bit more careful in the battles with Leclerc. there than we saw maybe with Hamilton last year is that you can't really afford to pick up any more penalty points because that would put him in a very precarious position because if you get to 12, then you have to miss a race. But very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.